Today's a good day, though. Today's a much better day than yesterday.
Subcommittee will come to order without objection. Big government.
Along with chaos, online casino, sports betting, esports, the streamer, and kick, evil scam, fixed match. Hello, hell doesn't exist. Thank you, Medicinal. Thank you, Dog Tuna, for deleting that. I was trying to read that.
Was colluding with big tech to censor Americans. That's the first thing we learned. But now
I'm studying French, but I feel like AI might make it pointless. Dude, everything you do can be done better. Like, everything you do can be, somebody else can do it better than you. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything. It just means you should realize you have a lot of freedom to do stuff that you want to do. It's not bad to have freedom. It's bad if you don't know how to apply it. But having freedom to do stuff is what makes you human. Having freedom to be inefficient, having freedom to do things improperly, that's when you're free. Because if you have to do everything perfectly, you're a slave to doing everything. The more you can do stuff incorrectly, the more free you are. It doesn't mean you should do it incorrectly, but the more leeway you have, it means that you're choosing to do stuff because of your free will. You're choosing to do stuff consciously, and you're not like a slave. You're an active force on the world. Because if you're doing everything reactively, you're doing everything as a reaction to something else, and nothing proactively, you're not really a person. You're just a slave. You're a monkey. You're like a monster. You're a golem. And so that's not good. You should be happy you can do stuff inefficiently, because then you can choose, and what you choose actually matters. That's like why your life matters, because you're gonna die. If you never died, your life wouldn't matter, because there's no consequences. But if you have a limited amount of time to do stuff, what you're choosing now has weight to choose. Like I'm doing this instead of something else. I'm not gonna be able to do this in my life because I'm choosing to do this, and that's what you're sacrificing this because you want to do this, and that makes this meaningful because you've essentially said this actually is cool, but this is cooler. So you're placing things in a hierarchy, which gives meaning and weight to stuff.
It's big government colluding with big banks and big business to spy on everything Americans buy, every place they go, everything they do. Big government wants your financial data because it's full of sensitive information about you. Our investigation started when an FBI whistleblower, George Hill, came forward.
Oh, by the way, this stuff, all this AI stuff, all this anti-tech stuff, this isn't actually real. This is a bunch of pimps, failed pimps in the government trying to scare. They're trying to get basically free money from Zuckerberg, from Musk, from Google, from Twitter, from TikTok. Really, at the end of the day, all this is annoying people until they give you money to go away. This isn't because they actually care about you. And even if they did, they're retarded, so it wouldn't really help. But you have to realize this. All this stuff is literally just protection money. We want protection money. The problem is it doesn't matter. They don't need to give them protection money. Like Zuckerberg, it doesn't matter. Zuckerberg comes in, he says retarded stuff, and then he goes back to doing the same thing. None of this stuff actually matters. This is literally just prostitutes saying, "We'll tell your wife if you don't give us money," and it's just retarded. And then Zuckerberg is like, "Dude, I'm an alien. I don't care about my wife."
Talk to the committee. Mr. Hill was supervisory intelligence analyst at the FBI.
Is TikTok the same? Well, TikTok is different because TikTok is a foreign company. And so it's probably there are people who want to make the American TikTok, and they aren't going to do as good of a job, and they want to get rid of their competition. And so you basically make it hard for other people so you can have room. Also, the anti-Semitic thing. It isn't controlled by 2% of the population, and so as a result, they don't like it.
Up in the Boston field office, told the committee that the FBI got information from Bank of America. Specifically, it received a list of any customer who made purchases in the Washington, D.C. area January 5th through 7th, 2021. The whistleblower supervisor, special agent in charge of the Boston field office, Mr. Bonavolanta, corroborated Mr. Hill's testimony when he spoke
Can we
to
get
the
Jordan
committee.
Peterson? I don't care about
And so did
Jordan.
Steve Jensen, the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Section Chief. But it wasn't just purchase data around a specific date that the FBI got from Bank of America. That was actually also overlaid with any firearm purchase at any time. And how did the FBI get this information? They asked for it. In fact, you can see on the display on the screen here the email that was sent. The FBI told Bank of America, to recap our morning call, we are prepared to action immediately the following threshold customers confirmed as transacting business in Washington, D.C. between these specific dates. So if you're in Washington, D.C., visiting your kids, maybe visiting your aunt, or maybe just a friend, the FBI wanted to know about every single purchase you made. And And
Once again,
if you're a gun owner,
the CIA and the Jews, the Anglos and the Jews, they're trying to destroy the FBI. I support the FBI. Because the FBI, I had a conversation with them once. They were chill. You know, I was walking a dog, walking around with my girlfriend, and the FBI said, hey, we got to check in because somebody said you were going to kill Russians. And I joked around with the guy, and then they hung up. The FBI is chill, just drunk Irish people, okay? The FBI is cool. CIA, no good. NSA, no good. It's not good. All right, FBI is just like a bunch of drunk people. That's why they're targeting it so hard.
You're going to the top of the list for simply exercising your Second Amendment right.
10 Fed bucks, 10 FBI bucks, 10 Guinnesses have been deposited in my account.
You're on the FBI's target list. And never forget, the federal government got this information without any process. No warrant.
Oh, they were not chill. They never talked to any Fed. Dude, I had to. I was being. They called me up there. They came to my family's house, and they were trying to find. That's why I knew it wasn't serious, because they didn't know where I lived. If they knew where I lived, then I'd be worried.
Frankly, no notification. The bank didn't tell the customer that we're handing this information over to the FBI, the most powerful law enforcement.
Feds in general don't. They're not your friend. Okay, they're not your friend. They're my friend.
An agency in the world. Now, these FBI agents, Mr. Hill, Mr. Bonavolante, Mr. Jensen, they all said this was wrong and, in fact, sent the information back to FBI headquarters in D.C.
Imagine believing the Constitution in the current year. Well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter. All the laws are made up, right? But this is how it works. It's like a card. If you can play the game, you can play the card. If you're a nobody and you don't have any options, they can abuse the law. If you're somebody and you manage to get attention with like the South Dakota thing, right? If you're nobody and you don't have any access, you just get thrown in jail. You don't really. But if you play the game and you're messing with people, you can then use it as a card, the First Amendment, and be like, see, this is free speech. And you know how to play the card, right? It's a very powerful card to play, the Constitution, that sort of thing. It's very, very powerful if you're playing the game properly. It's still, that's a big if, though.
That's how our investigation began. But since then, and we continue to investigate, but since then, we've learned that the financial surveillance was broader and there was actually a specific objective. The federal government is building profiles on the American people. And the profile isn't based on criminal conduct, it's based on political beliefs. And if you got the wrong political beliefs, well, you're potentially a domestic violent extremist. We now introduce today's witnesses. Dr. Jordan Peterson is a psychologist, author, and professor emeritus at the University of Toronto. He previously taught at Harvard University and McGill University. He has published more than 100 scientific papers, hosts a popular podcast, hosts public lectures across the United States, Canada, Australia, and Europe, and offers online programs to help consumers better understand their personalities and themselves. Dr. Peterson has been targeted for his views on the importance of free speech and traditional values, and has warned of the dangers of debanking political opponents, as he has seen in Canada. We'll begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record show that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you. And we will start with Dr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, you're recognized for 5 minutes. And thank you again for being here.
As well, I would like to start by expressing my appreciation for the privilege awarded to me to testify here today. It really is an honor to be asked to do so. I'm not here to talk about January 6th or about any particular threat, insurrection, or protest, political or ideological,
Did anybody ask?
Real or imaginary. I'm here to talk about the already extant and expanding collusion of government and corporation in restricting the individual freedom and autonomy upon which the productive, generous, and stable psyche, economy, and state are themselves necessarily founded. I'll begin my comments, therefore, in the most general terms to shed light on the mounting problem. There are now 700 million CCTVs in China under the rule of the Communist Party. The system to which those electronic eyes are attached is the most complete state apparatus of surveillance yet imagined. with the ability not only to recognize faces at a distance, but gait itself when facial features are hidden or obscured.
We've known this for years, dude. Who cares?
Such capability can and will soon be augmented to the point where the movement of eyes themselves, monitored by high-resolution and intelligent cameras, will soon be sufficient to identify any aware and active party. The demented, naive, and prideful engineers who so enthusiastically helped build this system call it Skynet, after the rogue and all-seeing technology that took such a dreadfully wrong turn in the famous science fiction movie Terminator series, featuring artificially intelligent robot intelligences hell-bent on protecting themselves by destroying humanity. The name also references a well-known Chinese phrase describing the reach of the divine itself. The net of heaven is vast, yet it misses nothing, which aptly describes the capabilities of the new state apparatus. The system is integrated with the so-called Chinese social credit system, which awards its involuntary participants with a score indicating their compliance with the dictates of the Chinese Communist Party, allowing for full control over access to everything they possess electronically. Most ominously, their savings and their access to travel. Certainly all modern means of travel, but increasingly as the electronic gates come up, even by walking. If you're Chinese or a visitor, your access to the world can be reduced to zero if your social credit score falls beyond an arbitrary minimum. This allows you purposefully to be shut out of all activities that can be virtualized. And in a rapidly virtualizing world, this increasingly means all activities: driving, shopping, working, eating, finding shelter.
Can't eat. I said the N-word.
Even fraternizing with friends and family, as merely being in the presence of someone with a low social credit score means that your own score can be lowered. This has also opened up the opportunity for the government to extract slave-like labor from its citizens, so burdened, as the donation of free work to the state still constitute one means by which erring Chinese men and women can increase their score and remain part of human society. This is precisely the payment system most desired by the most tyrannical, not the work for me and benefit thereby that constitutes the contractual arrangement undertaken by free and sovereign citizens, but the work for me and I will lift the deprivation I imposed that has always been the leitmotif of the slaver. Why is any of this relevant to people in the West? Well, because the technology that the Chinese Communist Party employs is an extension of Western technology. Because we already fell prey to the terrible temptation of lockdown employed by that state in the face of hypothetical crisis once and in the very recent past, because we're walking step by step in the same direction, partly because of the hypothetical convenience of universal and automatic recognition of identity, and partly because any problem whatsoever that now confronts us can easily be used to justify the increasing reach of the security and nanny state. It is said that Stone Age people, first confronted with cameras and their resultant photographs by modern anthropologists, objected to having their images captured as they feared the captivity.
The Nobel Prize for Best Guy goes to us again. Wow.
Where it sent $5.
Here it says, UPS, our fastest ground shipping ever. You know, what if it said our fastest and hardest boner? Quickest speed for getting a boner.
Yeah, what if it did, dude?
All right.
Thank you.
The images that we leave behind while navigating virtual space are such close duplicates of our actual selves that the capture of our essence is at this point all but guaranteed. We all now have our doppelgangers. We all live so much in the virtual world in consequence of our purchasing habits and modes of electronically mediated communication that our very selves have become reducible to a frightening degree to data, the modern equivalent of our footprint, with the same data making up an image of our identity, an identity which can be and is increasingly bought and sold by the...
Yeah, but that's how it works, dude. That's reality. Get good. That's really my message is get good, dude. If you don't get good, it's over, dude. It sucks to suck. Life sucks. You get good or die, bro.
Invisible corporate brokers that still mostly use it to sell us what we so desperately and carelessly and conveniently want, but that can also be used to track, monitor, and punish.
Yeah, it's just a skill issue, bro. Just a skill issue. Yeah, the game's changed. You got to change with the game. You can't ask the game to be changed back. The game's evolving. You got to evolve or fall behind.
Everything we do and say.
Life is Tarkov.
Behavioral
Yeah, exactly.
scientists facilitate this process with their...
Well, do you think so? Denying somebody their pronouns are protected in the First Amendment? No, you can't deny people's pronouns. That's called hate speech.
Reprehensible nudging, the practice of pushing people in a given ideologically determined direction by manipulating invisible incentives behind the scene. Corporations track purchasing decisions, developing algorithms that with increasing accuracy track our patterns of attention and action, allowing for the prediction of what might next be most enticing, doing so not only to offer us what we want, but to determine and shape what we need. Governments can and are colluding with these corporate agents to develop a picture not only of our actions, but of our thoughts and words, so that deviation from the desired end can be mapped, rewarded, and punished. The development of a digital identity and currency is nothing more than the likely end consequence of such inclinations, and the combination of both can and will facilitate the development of a surveillance state. The scope
Get back on the Zans, dude. You're freaking me out.
Of which optimistic pessimists of totalitarianism such as George Orwell could scarcely imagine.
I'm not bad at Tarkov, dude. I'm goated. I was so good at today.
The new AI systems, which are so rapidly emerging, do nothing but increase this danger, providing for the possibility of a super surveillance whose scope exceeds anything that mere unaugmented humans could imagine, while also making it certain that even the perceptions that in the real world shape our attitudes, conduct, and personality can be manipulated.
Yeah, if your perceptions shape your reality, then you suck. Okay, you got to evolve. You got to get better. If you can be like programmed by the internet, you got to figure out how not to be programmed, or else lose. What, you gonna be protected from everything? Protected from memes? No. Be yourself. Get good. Once again, the answer to this is not mommy and daddy government saving you. It's called getting good. Get good, dude. You got to be your own boss.
To the degree that we will not even be able to see a reality outside which that has been constructed by the superstate. The ultimate fascist collusion between gigantic self-interested corporations.
The only really people who should be protected are children. And they should be protected by parents. And if the parents don't protect the kids, the parents should be punished. That's really it. If the parents are actively harming their kids, and even that, it's like, that gets abused to think about vaccine mandates and stuff. But really, it's like kids should be protected, and it should be the parents protecting them. And it really should be, what it should be not really even law. It should be your community is holding parents to account. It should be the pastor, right? It should be your father, your friends holding you to account. And it should be a quality community, a local community of people who, out of concern, express things out of concern, that get addressed. And it should be kind of self-governing like that. It shouldn't be the government preventing stuff. It should be parents preventing stuff because they're the boss of their kids. They're fascists. They're fascists molding their kids into little fascists, and those fascists then grow up, and then they can be in charge. It shouldn't be the government. It shouldn't be strangers, because strangers don't care about you. At best, they don't care about you. At worst, they care about you and want to like molest you or use you.
Paranoid, security-obsessed, anti-human governments. We're already selling our souls to the superstate for the purposes of immediate gratification, while being enticed to do so by...
Mr. Chairman, could the witness be asked to
shut up?
Summarize, please.
Dude, look at how upset he is. He can't do his like retarded speech. That's so funny. Look at how upset he is. Huh?
And do I have my 5 minutes or do I not?
You've gone over 5
Oh,
minutes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
I
my
can
friend.
certainly.
If the witness could summarize, we're always a little lenient with the time. If you could summarize.
I'll take 10 more seconds.
Sure.
With increasing ability to monitor not only the actual attention patterns and behaviors of its citizens, but to predict those that are
The
most
witness shut up.
likely, the persecution of even potential crime becomes ever more likely. If you have nothing to hide, you will have nothing to fear, will be the slogan commandeered by those most likely to turn to surveillance to
That's
protect.
true, by the way. It doesn't mean that you should have all your rights taken away. But if you don't really have stuff to hide, you don't really fear. Even if bad stuff happens to you. You don't want bad stuff to happen to you. You don't want to be in a situation because stuff gets abused. But it is true. If you don't really have stuff to hide, you don't really worry about, you don't fear really stuff. You can get like concerned about things and you can be like, oh, this bad thing might happen. And this might be taken out of context, or, you know, somebody might lie about me. But it is true. If you have nothing to fear, if you have nothing to hide, you really don't fear stuff.
To control. What was the famous Soviet totalitarian joke attributed to Lavrenti
That was longer
Beria,
than 10
head
seconds,
of the
dude.
secret police? Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Those words were true enough in the time of Stalin's KGB, and the police were secret enough then as well. But that's nothing compared to what we can and likely will produce now. A police so secret that we will not even be able to detect their comprehensive and subtle activity. Monitoring
Dude, this is longer than 10 seconds.
crime so pervasive that everyone under the dictates of the system will have something to hide
Regular
and
order,
much to
Mr.
fear.
Chairman.
I'll go now.
Dude, in real life, people are just shut up, bro. When the YouTuber goes into real life.
Proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions. Dr. Peterson, do you think they're just going to stop with conservatives? I mean, my history tells us that the cancel culture mob, the surveillance state, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't just, they never are satisfied with just certain people. It always expands. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, Senator Feinstein, iconic Democrat senator from the great state of California, the folks in San Francisco renamed the Dianne Feinstein Elementary School. They took her name off the school because they found that she said something like 40 years ago that the cancel culture mob didn't like. So even a liberal Democrat senator wasn't good enough for the mob. They came after her too. And this is the
Wow,
thing that
you got your
scares
name
me.
taken away from
We've
a retarded
invited
building?
probably more Democrat witnesses in front of this committee than any other committee, because we invite Democrats to come in and say we respect the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, respect the Constitution. My concern is it never just stops with certain people. It always goes further. Do you agree with that?
Well, the reason I prefaced my remarks with an insistence on nonpartisanship is because the danger posed by this increasing ability of governments and large corporations to collude
This
threatens
is what they do in government now,
everyone's
just Fox News. And no, this is what it always is, dude. It's retarded. It's like, you couldn't pay me enough to do this. Look at all these people dead inside. It's like you're literally sacrificing your life, your entire like humanity, your soul, to get a paycheck to sit down. If you want to do that, just be a security guard. It's much less hassle. But worse money, but much less hassle. It's essentially just being a security guard. You're sitting there just wasting everybody's time. You essentially decided to sell your entire life for a paycheck.
freedom equally. And it could well be that at the moment, and this is, I think, the case the Republicans here are trying to make, is that the people who are in the sights of that collusion tend to have more conservative leanings, but that will shift in a moment whenever the political tides shift. And we're concentrating in this hearing a fair bit on the specific events of January 6th, a very partisan issue that produces a very intense partisan divide, but we're not addressing the fundamental issue here directly, which is that our new technology enables a mode of surveillance that's so intense and all-pervading that no one will escape its purview regardless of their political views.
Dr. Peterson, why are you such a Luddite? Why don't you embrace artificial
Facts.
intelligence and facial recognition?
Dude, King Chud. Dude, he's awesome. I thought he was like a libtard, but he's awesome, dude.
Why are you such
Regardless of their political views.
Dr. Peterson, why are you such a Luddite? Why don't you embrace artificial intelligence and facial recognition and massive computer surveillance and cameras on every street corner
So true, Massey.
so that we could all be safer?
Well, because there's tremendous danger in too much security. If the emerging collusion between government and corporation, gigantic corporation, continues in the manner that it is continuing, there won't be anything that you do that can't be used against you and will be used against you in very short order. And the concerns that are expressed here about the local consequences of that, let's say with regards to January 6th, seem to me to fail to take into account the much broader threat that lurks underneath that everyone should be attending to. We're in danger of eliminating the private sphere entirely. That's already happening in places around the world, particularly in China.
The car's on fire.
That technology is at hand. And it appears as though both giant governments and giant corporations are utilizing it in every way that they can manage. And it's generally
and a dark wind blows.
Motivated by the claim that that's forestalling immediate proximate threat.
The government is corrupt. And we're on so many drugs with the radio on and the curtain is drawn.
Nothing of value is being missed.
This horrible machine.
Yes.
Well, then why did Canada decide that you needed more education? Can you tell us about that?
The sun has fallen down. And the billboards are all leering. And the flags are all dead. At the top of their poles. It went like this. The buildings toppled in on themselves. Mothers clutching babies picked through the rubble and pulled out their hair.
Your testimony is evidence that your re-education has not been successful. I yield back to the chairman.
There are Republicans and Democrats who want to roll back the Patriot Act. What a beautiful name, but it's being used to violate American citizens' rights to privacy. We have one of the rarest things possible. You have Mr. Jordan and Mr. Nadler in complete agreement on how to reform the Foreign Intelligence
That's how you know it's
Surveillance
bad,
Act.
dude.
And frankly, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act part works pretty well. It's the Domestic Surveillance Act. Well, there isn't one because the Fourth Amendment guards it. It says you're supposed to get a warrant. And we're covering a giant hole.
Is he sponsored by Celsius?
Not about January 6th. What about the Bank Secrecy Act and third-party doctrine? Things that are being abused, weaponized against the citizens of this country. Now, they don't have all these same safeguards in Canada. And Dr. Peterson, you've experienced some of the consequences of not having the safeguards that we have in this country. I wonder if you could elaborate on how consequential it is to have the safeguards we do have here on privacy and speech.
This is a sick man. This is a sick man. Look at him. How do I buy crypto? Coinbase or Gemini or whatever.
The Nobel Prize for Best Guy goes to us again. Wow.
Hellrider 1861 sent $5.07 call.
Thank you.
Do you think there should be a warrant requirement before some financial institution hands over the name of the customer based on certain purchases they may have made? In a general sense.
Yes.
You think there should be?
Yes.
That's
Is
great.
this guy a
Your
criminal?
colleagues don't think so. Now, let me go to this. Do you think,
This
Mr.
guy a
Michel,
criminal?
that
Why does he have so many hand
if you can't do a
tats?
warrant, do you think there should be at least
Is this guy a
to
snitch?
know this?
Yes.
This guy a snitch, dude? He's got to be some cybersecurity snitch, right? Mr. Fanone. Divorced with 4 daughters. Dude, that's odd. It's odd to have that many tats. Was he like undercover? Was he an undercover person? That would make sense. Yeah, a plainclothes and undercover officer investigating narcotics trafficking. Okay, that makes sense. I was trying to figure out, like, because it's kind of an odd look. An odd look, dude.
You think there should be?
Yes. Imagine LARPing as a... honestly, that'd be a fun job. Kind of scary. But that is kind of a funny personality. It's like you're going to be a gang member, but you're actually going to be a cop.
That's great, because your colleagues don't think so. Now, let me go to this. Do you think, Mr. Michel, that
that's
if
the
it
cop
came
cried on CNN? Yeah, dude.
A warrant, do you think there should be at least a notification? So should at least the bank say, hey, Mr. Smith, the FBI just asked me for all your purchases on a certain date, and they want to know if you've ever bought a gun. Do you think that the bank should at least tell their customer who they're supposed to serve? Do you think they should at least be compelled to tell them that?
Yes.
Mr. Tedesco?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes, with reasonable exceptions for an ongoing criminal case.
Fair enough. Mr. Peterson?
They should get a warrant.
They should get a warrant. Back to the first thing. Mr. Falone?
Why is a Canadian even giving an opinion, bro? You're Canadian. Don't give an opinion on this. You're retarded.
Again, with exceptions for criminal investigations.
We got agreement on the panel. The first time we've had that this morning. Dr. Peterson, I want you to talk about the debanking issue we saw so much of.
Who would you consider to be the biggest victims of this surveillance operation?
I think it's the American citizens, and I think it's a bipartisan issue. Some of the Democrats in this chamber and in the Senate sent letters to the big banks just a few weeks ago, talking about de-risking. They call debanking de-risking. We're talking about the same thing of Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, including because of their religious donations and donations to charity. So it's a bipartisan.
That's true. It did happen to Muslims first. Before it happened to white people, it happened to Muslims first. 9/11.
Issue, and I think we all should be concerned about it and try to work together for solutions.
No, I 100% agree with you.
The craziest thing is after 9/11, they kidnapped like Muslims who weren't even involved in anything and brought them to Guantanamo. Like there are Muslims who didn't do anything, literally just donated to some organizations, peaceful organizations, and they were black. They basically kidnapped them and brought them to Guantanamo to torture them.
And you know, what do you think right now under the BSA, under the current structure? What is the remedy for Americans?
Well, there isn't much.
There is none.
And that's also a big thing to remember too, is that's how the devil gets you, and that's how bad people get you, is they get you to compromise your morals by people you don't like. And then, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And that's what always happens to Jews too. They practice discrimination, they practice kicking people out, they practice being mean. And then it always comes back to bite them because it always is the same thing. It's like, well, sorry, time to get a taste of your own medicine.
There is no mechanism for judicial review, right? So Americans cannot protest.
But that's why the 9/11 thing matters, because number one, it's just innocent people. Doesn't matter if they're brown, black, gay, straight, Muslim, Jewish, whatever. It doesn't matter. Because it got all the Patriot Act and all that stuff, all the spying, all the debanking, all the TSA stuff. That was all done under the auspices of brown Muslims icky. Brown Muslims icky. Arabs icky. Oh, let's spy on this. Let's spy on that person. Spy on this person. Let's keep track of everything, which they were already doing, but they wanted to have the legality to say they were legally doing it. And then once that's allowed, then all of a sudden you start to see stuff like stuff happened to Nick, stuff happened to Alex Jones, Andrew Anglin, all this other stuff. All this stuff happens because you're okay with it for somebody you don't like, and then all of a sudden, boom. Because that's the thing. You can punish people you don't like, and you can be reasonable and be very hardcore and follow proper procedure about people you don't like. And if they're bad people, they'll get what they deserve. But once you start stepping into the whole, you're making a impassioned choice where you're purposely doing something bad, you're taking shortcuts to punish people you don't like, those shortcuts will be used against you. You always have to do things properly. If you don't do things properly, eventually that's going to be applied to you or people you care about. And it's not like, oh, you let them get away with it, right? It's not like you're letting pedophiles get away with it. Not like you're letting bad people get away with whatever. You're just not going into vigilante mode and retard mode, because eventually that retard mode comes back to bite you. You have to have the same standards for people you really don't like, and proper standards. If you don't have proper standards for them, you're not going to have proper standards for yourself.
who is ostensibly an arm of the government.
That's why law and justice, and that's a very English conception, by the way. English courts, America's law is very based on the English system of justice and trials and legal, basically going through proper channels. That's why it's like very important. That's like one of the biggest things that the English did, was very valuable, is they inspired the American justice system, which isn't good now, but is way better than a lot of different places. For example, with the Tate brothers, where they're arrested, is it Bulgaria or whatever they are, wherever they are, or Romania, is people can be held in Romania without charges for a crazy amount of time. In America, you have to be held. You can only be held for X amount of time without charges. And once again, it's not perfect, but it's way better to have the sort of system. That's why the laws, like rules of law for war, matter. That's why what's happening in Gaza is bad, and that's why anybody who has a conscience or wants proper warfare, proper things to happen in a proper way that minimizes civilian deaths matters. Because even if you love Jews, even if you hate Jews, it doesn't matter. What matters is you have to follow certain rules, because if you don't follow certain rules, you have chaos. And if you have chaos, bad things happen. It's not, the way Israel's doing stuff in Gaza is not compatible with the modern world. It's not compatible with civilization. It's not compatible with nuclear weapons or guns or weapons of mass destruction or poison, because, if you're just a tribe and you're like a retard and you're in a trailer park and you have a club and you're hitting your wife or whatever, yeah, it sucks and it's bad, but it's not really going to end the world. It's not going to cause a huge problem. But if you're like a retard and you're abusing people and you also have big bombs and big weapons of death, if you're doing that, you need to have those weapons taken away from you, because guess what? You're a danger to everybody, because now your retardation doesn't just affect you and your personal life. It affects people outside of the trailer park. It affects people in the civilized world, and they need to have all their stuff taken away.
Point.
And that's why Israel needs to be taken, all their power needs to be stripped from them, and all their land needs to be given to the Palestinians, because it's not their land.
They cannot protest the disclosure of their financial...
Is there ever a case where you can break the rules to restore the proper rules then? Yes. Yeah, because if you're in a system like now where it's completely illegitimate, you should never break the law. Always follow every single law. But you're completely justified if you don't, because you're in a system that's you're completely against. You're completely against the system, and so as a result, you're probably going to lose. But breaking the law is totally within the. You're not trying to reform a system. You're trying to break it, and you're trying to replace it with something else. That's acceptable. The consequences are you're probably going to lose, but that's a logical. You're saying, oh, the system is broken. The system is flawed. This is my version of the system that I want to enact. And chances are you're not going to succeed, but that's a logical, because you're not just saying, I just want to get rid of this. You're saying, I'm going to replace this. I want to replace this. If you're trying to replace something, that's a reasonable thing to do. But if you're trying to participate in a system, you can't just, well, I'm going to cut the corner here. I'm going to cut the corner there. Only when you're at the point where the system needs to go, then you can be like, yeah, I'm not going to follow these rules. I'm going to have different rules. And you need to have rules that are proper. If you don't have rules that are proper, even if you're right about the system sucking, you still suck.
Transactions to the federal government. There's no mechanism for that, is there?
That's right.
What's up, Hitler?
And so, and obviously, they don't have any knowledge that their data was collected to begin with, do they?
Because basically, when you're breaking those rules, you're essentially saying, I don't recognize these rules. You're not saying, well, these rules are valuable, but I'm not really going to follow them right now. What you're saying is these rules are invalid, and I will not participate in this system. I'm not participating in this. I am playing a different game. And my intent is to override the system. My intent is to change it and break it. I'm not playing the same game. I'm playing a different game. And now there are rules to the different game, and you have to follow those rules. But it's not, you're not playing the same game. You're playing a completely different game.
Yeah, I think one of the scariest things I heard at this hearing was what Mr. Michel said. Once the bank has the data,
Wouldn't the current system work if there's no Jewish influence at all? No. Because there's a Romanian count who said this, and this is 100% true. It's like Jews only thrive in the swamp of our sins. The system is broken. The system needs to be fixed, because the system is essentially allowing for all this stuff. You need to essentially have good quality people, and you need to have rules that encourage good quality people.
The Nobel Prize for Best Guy goes to
What's
us
up,
again. Wow.
Thank you.
Our Nickel sent $5 hi, Paul Town. Whoa.
Whole new ball game.
Bro,
you can't learn about it in school. and you can't have a late start.
This is a good movie. It's Carlito's Way, a good movie. I should watch that. I've heard of that movie before. But that's the thing. It's the system's broken. Obviously, the system allowed a lot of bad stuff. The system needs to be overhauled because it's obviously not working. If Jews didn't exist, other people who act like Jews would take advantage of it. It's just obviously it needs to be rewritten in certain ways. It needs to be reconfigured in certain ways. And I'm not Catholic. I probably will never be Catholic. I don't really get the saint thing. I wasn't raised Catholic. Actually, my parents were both Catholic, and they chose not to be Catholic. So I probably will never be Catholic. But this is why I think Nick's perspective is actually really good. Where's the glazing song? But because if you say, oh, it needs to be a theocracy, it needs to be Catholic, then now it's not, well, what Christian-ish? What about this? What about women in church? What about this in church? Now you have a very quick thing. Either you agree or you disagree. It's not the hemming and hawing and the stuff. It's a very, very specific thing. And either you're on the side of it or you're not. It's not gonna be like, well, because people are not complicated. People aren't very capable of debating. Most people are not going to be like, well, a fetus at 2 months is different than a fetus at 4 months. Gay marriage, well, it's bad, but it's not the end of the world. They're not going to do the research into like gay people mostly being pedophiles. Most pedophiles being gay people, rather, and a lot of gay people being pedophiles. They're not going to do the research. So you kind of need to have a very, very shorthanded way of being like, that's bad. Why is homosexuality bad? Oh, the Bible says it's bad. Most people are not going to be like doing the research about gay men over 30 having to wear diapers because their butt falls out, right? That's not a normal thing. Most people are not going to do that. So you need to have a very, very specific thing. And Christianity is such a vague term that I think the Catholic thing does work. Now, Catholicism itself, I'm not a Catholic. I don't think I ever will be. But I think that's a very valid, I think it's like a winning strategy in terms of, the entropy, you say Catholic, people know what you're saying. If you say Christian, it's too vague, and then you spend a bunch of time talking about XYZ thing. If you say Catholic, it's a very specific, it's an organization, it has a specific hierarchy, and so it makes sense, because then you can be like, oh, this sucks, I don't agree with it, or this is good, I agree with it. It's not a hemming and hawing, oh, we need a Christian country, well, you can have this sort of stuff. So I think it's actually a very efficient, very proper. It makes sense in a strategic sense too, in terms of this is what it is. You don't like it, sucks. And so it's a very specific sort of like a binary choice, and it's very low entropy in terms of complication of information. You don't need to know 50 different points. You don't have to be educated on the Spanish Golden Age. When did Jews get kicked out of Spain? When did the Spanish Golden Age start? All you have to know is, oh, I agree with this. I don't agree with Catholicism. I agree with Catholicism. I don't. And that's a very simple choice that normal people, whether they're smart or stupid, can all come together and say, yeah, I agree. I don't agree. I agree. I don't agree. And so it's a very efficient, very concrete thing that is, I think it's a good choice. I think it's, whether or not it's correct, that remains to be seen. But I think it's a very, very clever, very inspired sort of perspective, in my opinion.
Government has the data.
Right. Can you hire a private security firm to search somebody's house without a warrant?
I don't think so, no.
No, you have to have a warrant. So what is the difference here?
I'd rather live in a Catholic theocracy. Yeah, that's the thing too. It's like, I'm not Catholic. I don't go into that. I'm not going to go into it. But if you give me a choice, what we have now versus the Catholic theocracy, it's like, yeah, dude, obviously that's different. Number one, that's different, so it's exciting. But number two, it's like, it's not going to be worse than, oh no, it's not going to be worse being forced to go to church on Sunday and say I'm Catholic. That's really legit not going to be worse than whatever we have now. Like, there's nothing really that's going to be worse than that.
It's a big risk, and it needs to be fixed.
So you would articulate, let me ask you the panel this, do you think that under the current BSA or other laws that it would be wise, given where we are from a
It's effective, which is why the Jews spent decades dismantling? Yeah, that is a thing. It is, although I have thought about this a little bit, and it's mostly a joke, but it is kind of funny. If you think of Jews and Italians being the same thing, just different breeds, they're both like, they both want to like run the world, and they both are, they just have different ways of going about it. It's a very funny, like, you start to see the parallels. You're like, wait a second. I'm sorry. I think this might be correct. These are the same people. They want to do the same thing. They just have different ways of doing it.
Logical standpoint, do you think it would be wise to revisit the BSA or the other laws to provide that protection for Americans' privacy?
Which is totally fine. I don't care, dude. I don't mind Italians. I'm not Italian, but it's totally fine with me, dude.
Well, there were some concerns expressed earlier about what might happen in the aftermath, let's say, of Donald Trump's election with regards to political...
And this is why if Nick was president instead of like JFK, this is why the Irish thing won't work. Imagine Lee Harvey Oswald and like the 5 snipers, the 5 Mossad snipers, and they're all like set up, right? They all have like the Grove all set up, and they're all waiting. And then Nick is like 7 hours late to drive through with the the caravan. He doesn't get assassinated because they can't really like afford to like set up shop because nothing runs on time. Everything's like at like random times, and so they can't really kill him. And so then you get, America looks a lot different. Good strategy.
Belief and anything that facilitates.
Yeah. 18 hours after it's supposed to start, he like sent the telegram message. Actually, I won't be going to Texas today.
Collusion between government and giant corporation.
Different country.
And enables that kind of information gathering will absolutely be used in that way. That's why I made comments earlier regarding this as a bipartisan issue. Once this capability exists, and it's being magnified now, it will be used in all directions. So the people at risk will be politically active, vocal Americans. The silent ones will remain relatively safe. But anyone who speaks.
And briefly, do y'all think that we should examine?
We should absolutely examine it.
Agree.
Yes, definitely.
Is La La Land good, dude? I want to watch a good movie with my girlfriend. It's like fun and upbeat. Is La La Land good? I think it's supposed to be pretty good, right? Because I like musicals. I'm a just typical straight guy who likes musicals. Is La La Land good?
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Chair, I have a point of order.
Bro, look at this audience. This is bro, look at this audience. Jordan Peterson's real audience. There's 15. There's 1, 2, 3. Well, the stenographer doesn't count. That's also press. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people. They're speaking to 5 people.
Last statement, you said that Steve Jensen of the FBI opposed the collection of this information for banks. That's a misrepresentation of his testimony.
Not an appropriate.
What's your favorite musical? I think I like Guys and Dolls. Guys and Dolls is really good. The Music Man is really good. What's another one? There's a few good ones. My Fair Lady, that's another really good one. What's Mary Poppins? That's really good too. My least favorite musical is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang because that's like MK Ultra freak stuff.
Since said that the information was not used, would you release the transcript so that we can hear exactly what Mr. Jensen?
Yeah, Music Man's so awesome. I remember watching that and Guys and Dolls, and I always loved the characters who are the scam artists. It was always so funny. I always love when they're doing the scamming, and then when they fall in love and they stop scamming, I'm like, dude, this kind of sucks. It's so much more fun when they're like rebels, and they're like transient scam artists, and they are taking advantage of people. It's so fun.
Appropriate point of order, and the gentlelady knows that, but she continues to try to ask.
Same way you do.
Question that
Same
is not
way
a point of,
you interject.
I don't think
sir.
I've raised one point of order today.
You interject all the
time. The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
All the time.
Yeah, I always love this, dude. This is so Guys and Dolls, dude. It's so good. This is my favorite scene from it. So good. It's a good lesson, dude. This is a really good lesson. So good.
Have we got a bet?
No, let's watch this.
I would be interested to hear. Offhand, would you say that Mindy sells more cheesecake or more strudel?
Going strictly by my own personal preference, I'd say more cheesecake than strudel.
For how much?
What?
For how much?
Why, Nathan, I never knew you to lay money on the line. You always take your bite off the top.
$1,000 says that yesterday Mindy sold more strudel than cheesecake.
Nathan, let me tell you a story.
Have we got a bet?
On the day when I left home to make my way in the world, my daddy took me to one side. Son, my daddy says to me, I am sorry I'm not able to bankroll you to a very large start, but not having the necessary letters to get you rolling. Instead, I'm going to stake you to some very valuable advice. One of these days in your travels, a guy is going to show you a brand new deck of cards on which the seal is not yet broken. Then this guy is going to offer to bet you that he can make the jack of spades jump out of this brand new deck of cards and squirt cider in your ear. But son, you do not accept this bet, because as sure as you stand there, you're going to wind up with an ear full of cider. Now, Nathan, I do not suggest that you have been clocking Mindy's cheesecake.
Would I do such a thing?
However, if you are really looking for some action, I will bet you the same 1,000 that you cannot name the color tie you have on. Have we got a bet?
No bet. Polka dots. In the whole world, nobody but Nathan Detroit could blow $1,000 on polka dots. Hi, Sky.
Nice to see you, Benny.
How goes it, Sky?
So
I'll
good,
take
dude.
the moment with you nicely.
Nicely, thanks. Nathan, what's the matter, Nathan? You look sick.
A temporary disorder. The cheesecake backed up on it.
Maybe that's why they told us they sell more strudel than cheesecake. Oh. Nathan, Adelaide gave us a message for you. Be sure and pick her up at the hot box after the show, and don't be late. Yes, dear. I mean, okay.
Yes, dear. This is husband talk if I ever heard it. Nathan, you were trapped because Adelaide is the kind of a doll that is most difficult to unload.
I don't want to unload her. I love her. A guy without a doll, well, if a guy does not have a doll, who would holler on him? A doll is a necessity.
Like I told you, I am not putting the knock on dolls. It's just that they are something to have around only when they come in handy, like cough drops. And the proof that I'm right is that dolls are available all over the place, as far as the eye can see.
Not dolls like Adelaide.
Nathan, nothing personal and no offense, but figuring weight for age, all dolls are the same.
All dolls are the same, huh?
As far as the eye can see.
And it seems to me that the one place a doll would come in handy would be on a trip to Havana. This being the case, how come you ain't got one? How come you are going alone without a doll?
A matter of choice. I choose to travel alone, but if I wish to take a doll to Havana, the supply is more than Woolworth's has got beads.
Not high-class dolls.
There's only one class, indivisible and interchangeable. A doll is a doll. All dolls, any doll, you name her.
Any doll? Will you bet on that? Would you bet $1,000 that if I name a doll, you can take the same doll to Havana with you tomorrow?
You've got yourself a bet.
I name her.
Her?
Sergeant Sarah Brown.
Daddy, I got cider in my ear.
Dude, that's not Jewish. That whole movie's awesome. That movie's so good, dude.